Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we are decoding the absolute scientifically proven study systems used by top JEE and NEET achievers. And look, we're going to prove right here and now that crushing these highly competitive exams, it's really about strategy. It's not just about grinding out endless, exhausting hours at your desk. So let's dive right into it. Be honest, we often have this image in our heads, right? We picture these toppers just locking themselves in a dark room, studying 16 hours a day, fueled purely by caffeine and panic. But the reality? The truth is, they rely on highly structured routines and actual cognitive science. They completely avoid the trap of brute force memorization. It's about working smarter, not just harder. To really grasp this mindset shift, take it directly from someone who's been there. Mridul Agarwal, the JEE Advanced All India Rank 1. He absolutely hit the nail on the head when he said his mantra was to work on one's mistakes without allowing its baggage to weaken one's resolve. Success here comes from a really smart strategy, rigorously analyzing your errors, and honestly, just keeping a highly resilient mental state. Okay, so here's our blueprint for today's explainer. 1. The science of memory. 2. Mastering mock tests. 3. The daily study routine. And 4. Managing exam stress. Let's jump right in. Starting off with Section 1, the science of memory. We're going to talk about actually rewiring your brain for long-term retention. Let's kick this off with a slightly terrifying reality check about human memory. According to the Ebbinghaus forgetting curve, you literally lose up to 80% of what you learn within 48 hours if you don't actively reinforce it. Think about that. If you just read a textbook and never look at it again until the exam, your brain is essentially just hitting the delete key on all that data. So how do we plug that massive memory leak? Well, the first cure is a game changer called active recall. Instead of just passively letting your eyes glaze over a textbook, you create a productive struggle. You close the book and force your brain to retrieve the information without any hints. Testing yourself like this is actually 3 to 4 times more efficient than passive reading, mostly because you are actively building durable neural pathways. And the second half of this magic combo? Spaced repetition. Instead of cramming all at once, which, let's face it, we have all tried to do, you deliberately review information at progressively increasing intervals. This exploits the psychological spacing effect to pull knowledge directly into your long-term memory. You review it right when you're on the verge of forgetting it, and that flattens that forgetting curve to an incredible 80 to 90% retention rate. To maximize this efficiency, cognitive scientists have actually mapped out the sweet spot. Your first review should be 1 day after learning. The second is 3 days later, then 7 days, 15 to 21 days, and finally 30 to 45 days later. By structuring your reviews across these exact intervals, you lock that info in for good. Plus, you completely eliminate the sheer panic of last-minute cramming. It is a win-win. Moving right along to Section 2, Mastering Mock Tests. This is all about applying your knowledge when the pressure is on. Okay, so you've built this incredibly durable memory using science. But how do you actually apply it under the intense pressure of JEE or NEET? You guessed it, mock tests. And here's the cool part. Taking a mock test isn't just a way to check your score. Thanks to what scientists call the testing effect, the very act of taking the test actively strengthens your memory pathways. Your brain has to work so much harder to retrieve the answers, which builds rock-solid memories and drastically reduces your exam anxiety because, well, familiarity breeds confidence. Now, listen closely, because this is where average students plateau and toppers completely separate themselves from the pack. After the test, you absolutely must analyze every single mistake. Ask yourself, did I lack knowledge on the concept? Did I know it but just blank out under pressure? Was it a silly calculation error? Or did I literally just misread the question? Using a checklist exactly like this turns your failures into highly targeted learning opportunities rather than just staring at a depressing final score. All right, Section 3, the daily study routine. Let's translate all of this cool science into a sustainable schedule you can actually live with. First things first, you've got to respect the beast you're fighting. There are distinct differences between your exams. Board exams are subjective. They need step-by-step presentation, long essay-style answers, and solid writing speed. But NEET and JEE? Entirely objective. They demand rapid problem-solving, crazy time pressure, and the instant application of really complex concepts. If you mix up your study styles for these two, it's just going to lead to total frustration. So how do you balance them? You use the 70-30 formula. From April to December, you want to dedicate 70% of your time to competitive exam prep and 30% to your boards. Then you flip that exact ratio from January to March, when board season hits. Shifting your priorities like this ensures you hit peak mastery at exactly the right time for both. Of course, pulling off that 70-30 split comes down to one thing: brutal time management. Creating a monthly, weekly, and daily study schedule is absolutely non-negotiable here. A highly structured schedule, one that deliberately sets aside time for revision and doesn't just overload you with a million tasks, is the absolute bedrock of your preparation. So, what does a topper's actual Tuesday look like in practice? A classic daily flow strategically tackles different subjects when the brain is best primed to handle them. The morning is prime time for biology and memory-heavy theory. Midday is perfect for chemistry and attending classes while taking short notes. The evening, that's when you grind out heavy problem solving, like physics numericals and MCQs. And finally, the night is reserved purely for light revision and flashcards right before sleep, which totally capitalizes on your brain's memory consolidation while you rest. And finally, Section 4, Managing Exam Stress. Let's talk about the mental maintenance required for peak performance. Honestly, this might be the most overlooked part of the entire blueprint: managing the inevitable stress. Look, you simply cannot run a years-long marathon on an empty tank. Taking care of your physical health, eating right, getting outside for fresh air, and fiercely protecting your mindset are non-negotiable elements. If your brain is exhausted, it will not encode new information, no matter how many hours you stare at the page. The absolute best of the best proactively manage burnout. They use mindfulness and breathing exercises to kill anxiety. They prioritize a minimum of 7 hours of sleep. And remember, that's when your brain actually cements those spaced repetition memories. They also make sure to include physical exercise like yoga or a quick walk. They carve out real time for hobbies, and they break massive, terrifying syllabuses down into small, highly realistic daily goals. At the end of the day, the secret to cracking JEE and NEET isn't some superhuman born with it intelligence. It's just utilizing a scientifically superior system: active recall, spaced repetition, targeted mock tests, and a sustainable, healthy routine. So, knowing the actual science of how your brain learns best, I'm leaving you with one final question to answer. How are you going to change your study habits today?